Hello, survivors, and welcome to episode 18 of Ark News. In today's episode, we take a grand tour of Genesis Part 2. We also have a look at what's coming next for Ark Survival Evolved, and go through everything we know so far about Ark 2. We have a large episode to get through, so without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to get started with the tour. We start in the Eden biome at our community centre. This is my private server, which has now been set to Genesis Part 2. It is a beautiful green biome with mountain ranges, plenty of rivers and plateaus. Eden is the perfect side of the map if you're starting on Genesis Part 2 at level 1. So, some Ark News channel info to start. Firstly, we have some changes to the intro. These may seem minor, but trust me, they are not. Which now includes some more creatures from the free maps, and from the very first map, the island, and also some of the new items, creatures, and vehicles from Genesis Part 2. So I hope you enjoyed the new intro. Secondly, as some of you may know, Ark can sometimes have low periods where there is not a lot of news. To help cover us during those periods, the new series Ark Highlights was designed to help ease the low periods of news, but we can't keep covering the same game forever. So, Ark News will start doing helpful guides, tips, hints and walkthroughs for some different games, and this will also include some videos for fun as well. Eventually we'll have more games to cover, but we will be starting with Forza Horizon 4. These videos will not be on a schedule like Ark News or Ark Highlights are at the moment. And that ends the channel business. Obviously, Genesis Part 2 is now here, now available to play on all platforms if you pay for the Genesis DLC. A couple of hiccups after launch, as to be expected, but they're trying to get to those fixed as soon as possible. So if you're waiting for some of those hot fixes, bear with them, they are working on it, I assure you. So some details with Genesis Part 2. The missions are outside of the play area on this map, different to Genesis Part 1, which means there's no interference with the build areas. You will need to do 8 missions in order to tame the Strider, the Tech Walker. In order to do the final boss battle, you will need to do each Gamma mission in order to do the Gamma boss fight, and vice versa for the other difficulties. All missions must be completed in order to do Alpha difficulty. Also, the final boss fight is very different than usual, as it provides you the means to defeat the boss much like the missions. So very different to the boss fights we're used to. Mutagen is the new hot resource on this map. It is a new type of taming food, much like the ambergris on Genesis Part 1. This is used in the taming of some of the creatures on Genesis Part 2, in particular the voidworm. You will need this to tame a voidworm, if you can find one. I mean, we've been running a private server since it launched, and I've not seen one yet, so I'm hoping to find one soon. I did spawn one in, though, so, yeah. Not just 1-3. Anywho, take care with the missions. They seem to be a bit glitchy at points, so where you cannot complete... not to the point... it doesn't impact your ability to complete them, but I will say this, some of them are very difficult, even on Gunner difficulty, and even with the glitches. I would not like to try them on a harder difficulty. Moving on to some more exciting information. We are now in the underground ocean biome. You can find this biome by looking for a pair of waterfalls in the Tech City in the Eden biome. Once you've found them, swim across and you'll find a corridor like the ones leading to space, leading to a massive underground ocean filled with all the creatures you would expect to find in an ocean. Also, you will find oil down here. Bear in mind, however, it is very hostile. This is where the alpha creatures will spawn. This is where the mosasaurs will spawn, and rather oddly, a raft destroyer creature will spawn. The Lustrosaurus, I believe it's called. So just be careful when you go down here, but it is an amazing biome, as you can see. Moving on to some more exciting information. Wildcard in Community Crunch 274 have revealed free map for Ark Survival Evolved, The Lost Islands. I'll put up the images up here. It is going to be another big map. It looks very jungle-like. There will be some new biomes. Also, for the first time since Ragnarok, we are getting 3 new dinos with this map. First of these is the Ambergris. So when wild, all of the creatures in the sauropod family, Ambergris tenacious is likely the most unique looking. It sports 2 parallel rows of dorsal spines down the length of its neck, back and tail. Though the neck spines are significantly longer than the back or tail spines, these spines are a remarkable adaptation, giving Ambergris unmatched control of its body temperature, made even more incredible by their time on the arcs. These spines store both extreme heat and extreme cold, effectively allowing Ambergris to live comfortably in any environment. Its sails also make it an abnormally capable swimmer for a sauropod. Unlike most sauropods, Ambergris is very prone to violence, attacking most predators and humans on sight. I suspect this behaviour developed alongside the dangerous spines it used as weapons, and I am quoting from Community Crunch 274 there, not I haven't written this. When domesticated, once finally tamed, it's no surprise that the Ambergris spines are its best feature. If removed early, their thermal storage becomes erratic, which is perfect for catalyzing sap development in many trees. Some tribes, of course, adapt this thermal quirk for combat by having Ambergris eject a spine before it sheds naturally. The freezing/warming waves that emanate from the spike play havoc with armor in the area. Interestingly, simple armor is barely affected, while more complex armor is more heavily affected. So be careful with that if you're not aware of the tech suit, so called. Sounds like an absolutely amazing creature. I can't wait to see this DLC in action. We don't know what the second creature will be yet, but the third creature will be chosen by the Ark community. I've put a link in the description below. You'll have the chance to vote on a historical dino with all the free maps. A historical dino will be added. I've cast my vote, and on this channel we are championing the Brachiosaurus, a very famous dino and a long-time community favourite. This is a massive dino, much akin to the Titanosaur, slightly smaller than that, and larger than certainly the current Brontosaurus. There are some other suggestions as well that you can have a look at, but the Brachiosaurus is one of those dinos that needs to be added. So we are now in the space biome. This biome shifts as you go to warp at night. Each new day brings new resources in this biome. This is a resource-rich environment, which means you cannot build in this location. This biome is much better than the lunar biome on Genesis Part 1. It features the anti-gravity effect. There is no oxygen. For me, I do really want to build in this biome, but unfortunately, due to the extremely awesome warp effect, which changes the resources in the biome, you cannot build here. A little bit of info that seems to be confusing some people. Because of the release of this map, people seem to be asking why Wildcard claimed Genesis Part 2 was the last map. So to confirm, Genesis Part 2 was the last paid DLC content containing story, which ends Wildcard's story, which has grown from Island. This free map, Lost Islands, will be the last free map for Survival Involved, and please be aware that free maps do not contain any story content for Ark, so they are essentially, it all stems from a scene in the Ascension of Island where you see all these other arcs. It comes from that, and that's why we have so many of these free maps, is because they're in orbit basically, so you're playing them before extinction happens pretty much. So, and usually they're added from the sponsored mod program as well, so you can usually find all these maps that they're all from the sponsored mod program most of the time. Now, I will be going through what we know so far about Ark 2. Now, you have heard me say so many times on this channel we have very little information, and that is true. But I thought, let's put all that information in one place and see what happens. So here is what we know so far. We have a trailer for Ark 2, which was revealed at the Game Awards back in January. Ark 2 features Vin Diesel, who not only is in the game, but is also working on the game. Ark 2 focuses on the character of Santiago, the person who invented the mechs. Ark 2 will be an open-world sandbox, which will also be mainly primitive. Ark 2 is set after the events of Genesis. Gareth Cooker has returned to do the music, and Ark 2 will be released in 2022. So simply put, all of that information that I've just said above is what we know. Those are the facts. Now let's get into what can we deduce. So we know that Unreal Engine 5 has been released. Now they have stated that Ark 2 will be using Unreal Engine 5 as the base to develop the game. We've seen some footage of Unreal Engine 5, in the latest Summer Bash trailer. Link will be in the description below. But there were not any reveals for Ark 2. It is literally a trailer for the latest event. Why is this important? Well, currently Ark Survival Evolved uses Unreal Engine 4. A lot of people have said that the game with the latest Unreal Engine should perform better, and things like that. Another thing we can deduce is that Wildcard will more than likely follow their current pattern with Ark 2 that made Ark Survival Evolved such a success, or at least made them money. We know from the article released last year that they make money by releasing DLC paid content. We can assume that there will be a season pass for Ark 2. We also know from this article that Wildcard want to add more story, and with Vin Diesel being so heavily involved in the trailer, I cannot see them removing the character creator and everyone being the same character, i.e. everyone playing as Vin Diesel. With Ark, you create a character. This is one of their best features, so I reckon we are going to get some form of separate story mode, such a campaign in which you play as Santiago Vin Diesel, meaning that the story is still optional and separate from the sandbox. We may have already seen the beginnings of this with Genesis Part 2, as the missions all take place on the same map, but are separate to the sandbox. They're separate, they're two separate entities. So this should be interesting to wait for. Finally, we do still not have any information on what consoles it will be available on. Now, there are several tweets from different people. At present, the state of confusion is odd. A Microsoft company tweeted that it will be available on Xbox Series X and S and Windows 10. Meanwhile, Wildcard tweeted that it will be available on Xbox Series X and S and PC. Now, we know that when Wildcard say PC, they refer to Steam and Win 10 for Windows 10. But seeing as we have so little information and that they've told us so far, it's better to wait for more information. I would suggest to wait for the confirmation. Now that Genesis Part 2 has been released and we only have the free map, which has already been talked about, I reckon we're going to get more information during their next Extra Life stream, their charity stream, which should be around towards the end of the year. I think it might be October. Don't quote me on it. So that is when I think we'll get more information. Another point on the Xbox. We have now come into Rockwell's Garden biome. This is a hostile environment with beautiful flowers and some flowers that will kill you. This side of the biome clearly is where Rockwell has been experimenting. There are areas of this biome where you will not get killed constantly. Another point on the Xbox Series X and S, I've seen footage of Forza Horizon 5, which looks amazing, and that's been developed, and they're talking about how things are better if you have the Series X and S, and I'm wondering if that would be a case for Ark 2, that it might be, although yes, you have the 4K and stuff like that, I'm wondering if the base game would be better on the Series X and S, akin to Forza Horizon 5, where although it's being released on the older generation, like Xbox One, and you'll be able to play it, you won't get some of the new visual and audio features that an Xbox X or Series S person would have. So I'm wondering if that would be the same case for Ark 2 as well, where it will be released on the older generations, but it would be better on the Xbox Series X or S. But again, that's going to have to be something we wait for. Also, in a recent live community crunch, said confirmed that Ark's survival evolved will not be coming to an end. He said, and I quote, that events and free maps will be continuing even during Ark 2's launch. He also stated that at the moment there is nothing tangible to share about Ark 2 at this point other than reconfirming that it will be primitive. I have a question regarding this primitive stuff though. It doesn't make sense given what we know about Genesis Part 2, that they're on a ship, they're heading to a world to resettle the humans. There's already that sci-fi element to the humans arriving. I'm wondering why choose primitive, because you've already got that sci-fi element coming in. I realise what they're trying to do. They're trying to pander to those people who complain about tech creatures every time one's released. Part of me gets it, but another part of me says, look at the story, and a wholly primitive map doesn't make sense if they've arrived via a highly technological ship, which we've seen, and current technology isn't even close to a ship like that. The technology alone is impressive. And I'm not referring to the mech suits or the tech suit. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to the ship where the biomes are actually on in Genesis Part 2 is a heavily advanced ship. To transport those rings in a ship at light speed is, beyond what we can currently do as human beings. And yet they're saying that the map's going to be entirely primitive. I question the story choices of Genesis Part 2 going into Ark 2, making it primitive. It would have to be explained, I think, in order for it to make sense, because I'm already detecting that massive plot hole there, and that's not cool, because I don't really want to play a game and it's got a massive, great, big, gaping plot hole in it. I'm not suggesting that it has to be tech. I'm suggesting there has to be a level of something that would make me feel, okay, yes, this is the element I was expecting to see. I'm not suggesting, oh, okay, yes, there's going to be, the tech side of things again. No, I'm not suggesting that at all. Let's set that aside for a minute. I'm suggesting that the sci-fi element that they've already placed in the game and already placed in their continuation has to be followed through almost to reflect what's going on. So, it'd almost be like saying, oh, we're going to explore space, but let's do it in a wooden horse and carriage, because that makes perfect sense. It's the same principle. So, yes, I get where they're coming from, but I understand where so many people are coming from. But for me, it just doesn't make any sense for them to arrive on a super advanced ship and then have no tech. Something's sort of wrong there, or not have anything advanced. I would say, would it not be a case of keeping the weapons, maybe, and then getting rid of the tech armor, but keeping some of the highly advanced weapons? Because that would make so much more sense. They're going to have access to the weapons. Let's keep the weapons, or at least change the weapons, maybe. Keep, the tech weapons going. They've only just added the tech bow, and apparently that was supposed to be released with RAG when it first was announced. So, in my opinion, I think there should be something advanced about this map. It can't just be all primitive, otherwise the story doesn't make sense. It's just my opinion on making a whole map primitive when you've already set the story in your previous game. It needs to either follow through or it needs to be made sense of, and I think that's the overarching problem with Arc 2, is that if they make it all primitive and we've gone there in an advanced ship, it doesn't make sense. But I also see it from everyone else's point of view, where tech has become this annoying little thing. Island was originally non-tech. When Ark first came out, there was no sign of tech, no sign of tech creatures, anything like that. Then they added the Ascension. They added the boss fight, and they said, oh, what do you get for doing the boss fight? Oh, let's add a new tier. Let's add tech. At the time, it made sense, I guess. You do a boss fight. What do you get out of that boss fight? You just don't. It's just not about getting the levels again. There should be the progression of stuff as well, because that's how other games work as well. When you do a boss fight, you get stuff, or items, or things like that. You get something in return for completing one of the game's most difficult things. And I put difficult in abbreviated commas because some of them are easier than others. Let's not talk about Center, because I did that on my own. That was very easy, because none of the creatures were flying. I will make that point. No creature was flying in the Center boss fight, and I will cover boss fights in our Highlights series because it is very interesting to talk about. Anyway, but yes, the reasons why tech has become this, oh, here we go again, there's another tech thing they're adding, is because it's just got to the point where, oh, okay, they've added the tech creatures, but they keep continually adding more tech things, and especially with the Genesis DLCs, they were really ramping up the tech side of things. And I will particularly mention the tech hoverskiff now, because yes, it is one of my favourite things to use in game. It is also one of the things that causes a bit of a stir still at the moment, because it is one of those things that, is it really needed? Are wyverns not enough? That's one of the things that I think people say. But I think when you look at the tech side of things now to where it would have been back in Ireland, there's now a lot more stuff to rival. You now have a tech thing for every weapon, or everything has a next level about it now. So now with the tech bow, you now get the next. It's the next one on, and things like that. So some of them can be tracked and made sense of, others of them maybe not. But yeah, and then I love some of the tech things. I think it's great. Architecturally, maybe not the best looking of building material, but it still looks good. So I'm going to move on before I bore everyone to death. Also in the live community crunch, they did a live community crunch recently on Twitch, which I decided to watch and sit through. Was about an hour, maybe under an hour, I think. So they mentioned that server lag is a complicated issue. There are a lot of different calculations that run, especially with an event on. They're working on it. If you're experiencing an issue, please do one report to support and not many. I know it sounds tempting to continually report the same issue that you've already reported, but just do it once and they will get to it. They are getting a lot of tickets at the moment. Be patient. They are working their way through them. They're busy. Lost Island. So let's keep talking about that for a minute, because they mentioned a few things about that. Later this year, when it will be released, 3 new dinos, with one of which is being chosen by us, the community. There will be ruins, a volcano, a snow biome, including what looks to be like a forest. This is just one of the pictures. I hope they're on the screen now. Map will change from the mod to the official. So if you are currently playing it on PC and are playing the modded version of this map, because it is currently available to you, it will be different when it comes to official. Just to add some special stuff, just be aware the contest for the voting will end this month, and then the top 10 will then be voted on. So make sure, if you want to have a look at those, that link is in the description. Please look and vote. I really urge you, if you are one of those people who, goes, oh, Ark haven't released this dino yet, or anything like that, have a look and vote, because there are so many on there. Not just a Brachiosaurus, which I'm mentioning yet again, but there's like a Dinopithecus, which is like a giant baboon thing, which can be trained to hold guns, and there's a flying squirrel, which I saw, which looked absolutely amazing, which has only been recently discovered as well. So people are really looking at, the real world dinos and really thinking about what they could be used for. So yeah, please look into that and vote, because it's really important to have your say. So get your voting quick and get that done. Moving on, the sponsored mod program. There are no sponsored mods now, yay! Which, if you're playing on console, yeah, this doesn't really apply to you. But if you're playing on PC, check out the new sponsored mods. Yeah, go check those out. And please keep looking at Castle Keeps and Forts. It's a brilliant mod. That is one we really want being brought into the game as well. And also, for those that do modding and might be listening to this video, if you are, hi and welcome. Or if you're interested in doing modding, like I am, this is interesting news. The Genesis 2 dev kit is now live. Explaining a little bit about what dev kit is, it's sort of like everything from the DLC or that map wrapped up in a nice little bundle for you to then use to then mod, basically. So yes, that is now live. Go ahead and start modding that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love playing Ark on console. I love playing how I play it. But one of the things I would absolutely adore to try is modding, because it just looks so much fun, and to be able to say, oh, I created this, is just interesting to me. And that ends the tour of Genesis Part 2 and everything we know for Ark 2. I will do more videos on some of the unique creatures soon. Also be sure to check out the next episode of Ark Highlights, the difference between admin commands and server settings. Ooh. Very exciting episode, very exciting times with that one. Also be sure to check out the next episode of Ark News, where I'll do a deep dive into the Astrodelphus, or the commonly known as the space whale. Very interesting there, very excited about that one. Make sure you subscribe for more Ark News and Ark related content, and hit that notification bell ding to stay up to date with the latest news on Ark. If you have any questions on anything in today's episode, or anything Ark related, please leave a comment below. I'll try to do my best to get back to you as soon as possible if you have a question. And see you next time. Survive.